Hey guys, I want to be saying why the original trilogy are the best lightsaber duels. And so my argument isn't going to be that they look the best, all the others are shit. I mean from like the choreography and stuff actually like reflects the emotion and what's going on. So of course we got to start out with the originals. And the first lightsaber duel was Obi-Wan versus Vader. Now see the fight itself isn't like the best, mainly because it's very like slow and methodical, but it kind of makes sense for the characters because it's like they're worried for each other. And then its ending is Obi-Wan sacrificing himself to Vader, so Luke and the gang can get away. But I think over time it's gotten better because after Empire came out, it was like the idea that this was Anakin and he was keeping it, but it really got good after Revenge of the Sith because it was the last time they fought was at Mustafar when like Obi-Wan fucked him up like real good like, so it adds like a lot more emotions because it's like the last time they fought like he messed him up, he was the learner, and da da da. So yeah, good fight. uh then we have Luke versus Force Vision Vader, which is when he fights like the Force Vision of Vader. And like the fight itself is fine. It's not the best. It's not really about the fight. It's more because he like cuts off his head. It's Luke, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like how easy it is to come to the dark side or whatever. It's not like the point. It's not like the lightsaber fight isn't really the point, so it's fine. Now we get to the good stuff. Luke versus Vader. Now, in Empire, this is a really fucking good fight because it has like two contexts. So the first time you watch it, it's like you feel bad for Luke because it's just Vader just like fucking pummeling him and toying with him, and and you could really like tell that with like because Darth Vader's not trying. He starts throwing stuff at him with the Force, and he cuts off his hand, and then you get the reveal that it's his father or whatever. Well, not whatever he is. Uh, but so when you rewatch it, it's more like Vader testing his son and why, and it's just because you can tell because how Darth Vader fights. He's very like he's toying with him the entire time, and Luke's really struggling, and you could tell that through how they fight. And now we got the best lightsaber duel: Luke versus Vader, Part Two from Return of the Jedi. Now this is really good because the fight starts out with Luke really holding back because Luke's holding back. He doesn't want to kill Vader. He still wants to convert Vader, and he's actually kind of struggling. But then, when like Vader brings up Leia, he just goes like ape shit, and you can really like see he's going like really hard. He's trying to beat Vader now because he's scared for his sister. And then the great theme kicks in when he's just beating Vader. And then like when he cuts off his hand, because how good Mark Hamill is as an actor and how like aggressive, you can really feel like the anger. He cuts off his hand, but then he throws away the lightsaber. And yeah, that so the originals like mainly the Luke. So the Obi-Wan versus Vader, like as a like recap, is good because mainly the context of the prequels actually does help that fight a lot. And both Luke versus Vader just has so much emotion and how like it's choreographed or whatever. But now we go to the prequels. So first we got Qui-Gon versus Maul, and I can't really criticize this because it's a short fight and it's just supposed to like introduce Maul to the characters and be like, oh, there's a Sith around. So the fight isn't like that. It's supposed to be that like emotional, full or whatever. But then, so Qui Gon and Obi Wan versus Maul shows kind of the problem with the prequels, as in the prequels lightsaber fights look really cool, but when you're watching them, it's kind of covered up by how fast they're going. But it feels more like they're dancing than actually fighting because it doesn't feel like they're trying to kill each other. It feels like they're just trying to go for each other's lightsabers because how fast it's going. It's not bad, but it doesn't show any emotions. And then when Qui-Gon getting killed, I actually do like how Maul does it. I like how he like headbutts them and then stabs them. But then when Obi-Wan fights Maul, it's like you can kind of see the aggression in his face, but he fights like the same he always does. Because in the prequels, they're always like very fast, like aggressively fighting. So you can't really show that. And then, because when he cuts them in half, it's fine, but it's just not as good as the originals. It's a good fight, but it's not as good. And it doesn't help. It's like cut. It's like at the exact same time of three other things, so it keeps cutting. But yeah. Next we have Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku. So Anakin runs in, and then he gets lightning, which fits his character, but it doesn't. Sorry. It doesn't really fit his character. Well, I mean, it does fit his character. Dang it, there's a phone ringing and distracting me because it's stupid. Uh, so yeah, and then Obi-Wan, but you Obi-Wan gets messed up by Dooku, and Dooku also messes up Anakin. But when they're fighting, you can't tell that because again, it's just the same like style of fighting the whole way through, and it looks cool, but you can't like tell. Like you can't really tell that Dooku's like way better than them two, in my opinion. And then you have Yoda versus Dooku, which I do like how it starts off with the Force, but then as soon as it gets in the lightsaber fight, because it look, I'm trying to like split on it. Like it kind of looks cool, but it's also really stupid because it's just Yoda bouncing around. But the point of the fight is Yoda like Dooku can't beat Yoda, so he runs, but you can't tell that because it's just Yoda jumping around and Dooku like just hitting it, and it doesn't help that like even with the last fight, I forgot to mention that Dooku like Christopher Lee couldn't do all the stuff, so they have like a stunt double, but they use like really bad CGI that like lags and isn't always like where it should be, and it just doesn't look right. So yeah, like these fights aren't bad. They're just not as like good as the originals. They don't show like they're like cool looking, but they don't show any emotion. And again, they just feel like a dance, and they don't really look like they're trying to like really kill each other when they're fighting. Intermission, Clone Wars micro series. This was going to go in the honorable mentions, but then I realized I literally went over like every single lightsaber duel except for one, so I just moved it here. So the first one is Ventress versus Dooku, and it's fine. Like Dooku feels pretty powerful. It's not like the best thing ever, but when it gets good, because like I did the micro series, because it actually has really good lightsaber fights. So Anakin versus Ventress is really good because the most of it is like it's a lot like the prequels as, but they're evenly matched. But it makes sense for the characters. But then when Anakin just goes like absolutely brutal, there's just like so like you can feel the emotion because of him screaming, but also how he's like very aggressive and just keeps swinging and swinging. And so yeah, and then we have Grievous versus Jedi. And I like this because Grievous feels very powerful and scary the whole time because, like, the Jedi are sweating and tense, and, like, he never stops striking. And it's just, like, very scary, and it fits this version of Grievous very well. And then, so next we have Grievous versus Mundi. And the reason why I have this separate is even though they're technically the same fight, they're like different seasons or volumes or whatever. So technically they're different. But I can't really say anything because it's like a few second fight, but it's fine. Uh, Grievous versus Dooku, like when they're training, I like because Dooku actually feels like he's training him because he gives him like advice, and every time he says something, Grievous will respond. Like he says he's doing stuff too basic or doing too many simple attacks, so he starts getting a bit more exotic with his moves, and then he says you're holding lightsaber too tight to then cut out a hand because he says it's too light. Not the best thing ever, but I like it and it fits the scene. And then Grievous versus Jedi Part 2, it's just the same as before. Like, very aggressive. The character seems scary. He feels like an unstoppable force. And I just like it. I don't think, like, any of these are better than the originals, but they all, like, fit the scene very well. So, so yeah. Okay, so Then for episode 3, the first thing is Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku Part 2. And it's like it's an enjoyable fight, but like again, like it's just like the same like fast-paced fighting that you saw, and you can't feel any improvement besides the fact that they're not getting like destroyed in 5 seconds, which is just my main problem with the prequels. Obi-Wan getting thrown is fine in the fight, but that has to deal more with the Force or whatever. But it's not a bad fight, but it's just not as good as the originals. Uh, Obi-Wan versus Grievous, the lightsaber duel doesn't actually last that long because it goes into a chase. And I do like the whole fight, but the lightsaber duel part is fun and fast and looks cool. And it's cool how he cuts off his hands. And I actually do like it because Grievous kind of feels like a unstoppable force. This is actually a good one, but it's just like the scene itself is just like, how do I say this? It's just like the good guy versus the bad guy. Like in the movies, there's like no real emotion behind it, and Clone Wars does add because it's like a long time rivalry, but it's not as good as the originals. It's actually a good fight, but it's just not as good again as the originals, which I keep repeating, but that's the whole point. Then we have Palpatine versus Jedi Council. In the lightsaber duel, is he kind of just, and I know it's not the whole Jedi Council, but it's like a few members. Like he cuts through like all the people except for Mace Windu in like the first like what 2-3 seconds of the fight, and then it's just again like the same fast paced thing that's in every other fight. And I get that they're kind of balanced, but it's not bad. It's just again no emotion. Next, Anakin versus Jedi. As I said, every lightsaber. I don't. I think I'm pretty sure I said I'd go over every lightsaber duel, but yeah, it's a fine scene. It lasts like 2 seconds. I included it. Okay, next. It's not bad, but it's like it's literally a 2 second scene of just showing him do stuff. Uh, then we have Yoda versus Darth Sidious, and like the lightsaber duel, like actual part isn't. It's more them using the Force, but like it's the problem I have is the Force kind of shows it, but my problem with this fight in general is Yoda and Darth Sidious are fighting, and then they both get thrown back, but Yoda falls farther, so he's like, oh, I'm gonna run away now, and then he's just like, oh, I have to go in exile. Like I get why, but just how the fight is, it would have been better if Palpatine, I don't know, like threw Yoda around a bit more. You don't really. They feel pretty equal in the fight, which is kind of my problem. It's not a bad fight, but I feel like it could have been better. Anakin versus Obi-Wan. This is a very emotional fight, but how they fight again, it's like the same as always. There's some scenes where like they're very aggressive towards each other, but they would have been nicer. I don't know if Obi-Wan one like was holding back because Anakin does feel like he's putting everything, but it's like it looks cool and the high ground thing. So the high ground thing, like what I've heard, and I'm not sure if this was the point, is that Anakin tries to jump over Obi-Wan, like Obi-Wan tried to jump over Maul. So that's kind of cool, but I don't know if that's what they were going for. But it's like a good fight, but it's probably one of the best fights in the probably the best fight in the prequels, but it's not at the same level as as like Luke versus Vader, either of those, in my opinion. Uh, Also, I forgot to mention the Yoda and Darth Sidious thing. These are like at the same time, but this one, Anakin versus Obi-Wan starts and finishes after, so I put it at the last. So next, we're doing on the films. We have to do the Clone Wars film, so Ahsoka versus Ventress. I literally forgot this was a fight because I'm pretty sure it lasts all of like 2 seconds. So I'm not gonna count. It's just like I'm going over it. It's fine, but they don't. It's not like a real like duel. Next we have Obi-Wan versus Ventress. It's fine. It's just like it's fun, but it's not like emotional. But it's not supposed to be. It's just supposed to be like a lightsaber duel. So it's fine. And then Anakin versus Dooku. It's a fine fight, but I don't like what it does because this isn't one of my problems with Clone Wars, is I don't like Count Dooku fighting Anakin so much, just because I like the idea that like the last time Anakin fought Dooku was when he got his arms uh cut off, because that's even what's implied in the movie, because he says like last time we've met, my powers have like doubled or whatever. Uh, so yeah, it's a fine fight, but it's not like anything great. That's kind of like the Clone Wars film in general, because the main problem with the film is it just feels like not the best arc in Clone Wars, because there's a lot better Clone Wars arcs. But now we get to the sequels. So the first thing is Rey and Finn versus Kylo. When Kylo and Finn fight, I actually think it's pretty good, but and it feels like Kylo's toying with him. But my problem is Rey versus when Rey gets the lightsaber is Rey's never used a lightsaber before, and I get Kylo's wounded, but I don't like how like Rey is like evenly matched for Kylo, even though she's never like picked up a lightsaber before. Because besides just kind of making like Rey feel overpowered, it makes Kylo seem like a complete like idiot and like useless, which I hate. Next we have Luke versus Ben. This scene lasts all of like I think 2 seconds. It gets shown a few times, but it's not really a duel. Like literally, this frame is all you really get, but it's fine. It's not bad. It's not good, but it's not the point. So I'm not gonna like rate this. I'm just going over it. Next, we have Raylo versus Fake Royal Guards. And the reason why I have this is so this is where I want to go over my problem with the sequel. This is a lightsaber duel, so I'm not counting it. But like even in the spring, you can see Ray kicking three guys at once and how like they go in. Because it has the same problem I think with the prequels where it's like overly choreographed, where it doesn't look like they're trying to kill each other. It looks like they're just trying to like go for each other's lightsaber, because here like the three guys attack Ray's lightsaber, not one two of them put pressure and the other stab. No. It just feels like really like choreographed. And the other problem is there's a lot of mistakes, like there's weapons disappearing, and this because I think the scene's been over. I like this scene, but I think it's been overly nitpicked, but it does have a lot of mistakes. But it's also because the prequels, like a lot of the problems with the choreography I think were covered up because how fast it was going. So at least you could be like, well, they're not trying to kill each other just because like how fast it's going. You need to block a lot. Here it's going so slow, but it looks choreographed and it doesn't look like when if you don't notice, it looks fine. But when you notice, you really notice it doesn't look good. So yeah, next Luke versus Kylo. Uh, This is kind of a lightsaber fight. They don't really meet, but it's I want to treat it like it. It's fine, even though like the Luke projecting himself is really fucking just stupid. Like I like this scene, but like that part is kind of dumb. It's fine. It's like it's basic. That's my main problem with the sequels. Is a lot of it's like very basic and boring. Uh, Next is Rey versus Kylo. This is when like they do the weird, stupid ass. Oh, we're gonna fight through the Force, so we're not in the same location. It's fine. It's very basic. It's not the best. It has a lot of dumb stuff in it. And now we have Rey vs. Kylo Part 2. I deadass don't remember this fight. That's my problem with a lot of the sequels. Is I don't like I've watched the movies recently, but I don't remember the fights very well. Because I forgot to mention no, no, that doesn't count. Forget about what I said forgot to mention. I was gonna give the sequels more credit than they deserve. But it's just like the problem with this fight is very basic, and again, like how it ends is so stupid with like Leia being like, "Oh, bye." Uh, so yeah, because also I forgot to mention I'm not gonna count stuff that happens like because I'm not gonna go over Luke versus Palpatine or I mean the Emperor or Rey versus the Emperor because those aren't lightsabers. That's the same reason why I didn't go over how like Anakin cut off Mace Windu's hand because I guess that's part of the fight. But like that doesn't really have to do with duels as much as like an interruption. Uh, so yeah, and how it just again how this fight ends is just so stupid. of like Leia dies, so goes and then Rey stabs him, and then she just heals him. And then the final fight, lightsaber fight of the films, Luke versus Leia. Because the Emperor never uses a lightsaber, so that doesn't count as a lightsaber duel. That this is fine. It's like a really dumb retcon that I hate. Of like Leia was actually a Jedi and she fully completed her training. But then when she completed her training, she got a vision that Ben was going to be a bad guy. So she was like, no. Or like the death of her son or some shit. I don't fucking know. Uh, so yeah, that's the films. But before we go into the conclusion, we got the honorable mentions. The first is from Clone Wars, and I actually think Clone Wars does like lightsaber duels really well. But the best one is Maul and Savage versus Darth Sidious, just because Darth Sidious feels so powerful, and he's just like laughing, and he feels like he's not even trying. It's just so great because like Maul's just like almost terrified, and Savage isn't really aware of like the power of Sidious, but like Maul's just terrified the like entire time. It is such a good fight. And the next is from Rebels, which I don't think Rebels has like the best lightsaber duels, but this one's good. Because my main problem with Rebels, even this episode, like half of it is just like dumb shit with Ezra and Chopper and Tusken Raiders. But like the Obi-Wan versus Maul, because he starts with like the one pose you see from episode 3, and then he goes into the one he takes from episode 4, and then because it's very short, which I actually like, but I like because Maul tries to use the same move on Obi-Wan they used to kill Qui-Gon, but Obi-Wan sees it coming and then kills him. And I just really like this scene because I like how it's short pace and it's not dragged out. So yeah. And before now we had the dishonorable mention, and this is going to be a spoiler for Kenobi. And this is going to be weird, but I have to explain. So Obi-Wan versus Vader Part 2, because like the last time, like they fought in like live action was like the one scene in A New Hope. But like the scene itself actually is really good. Like the fight, because Obi-Wan feels very scared and Vader feels very powerful, and like there's actual really good emotions. But my problem is I hate because this kind of ruins, in my opinion, the scene from A New Hope, because it was like I like the idea that the last time they met and fought was at Mustafar, but now it's like this. It's probably going to be another because Kenobi's not complete. But yeah. So in conclusion, like that was a lot of ranting, just because like the originals, like I don't think the others are bad, because like the originals just show so much emotion, like just a good amount of emotion, which I really like. But then fucking the prequels look nice but are too flashy and show like zero emotion. And then the sequels either have like a lot of mistakes or just really basic. And so that's why I think the originals are better. And I've had this opinion, but so my motivation for making this video was because I saw like a short on YouTube of a guy being like lightsaber battles went from this and it was the prequels, and then showed to this, which was the sequels. I was like I get like people like the prequels more than the sequels, but it's like I hate how people like have the prequels at such a high regard because I like the prequel lightsaber duels, but the originals are so good, but no one fucking talks about it. So yeah, that's why I made this ranty video. Okay, bye.